Hello every gaming buddy! Well, finally I got with the program and started a talk show. Every other week I'll cover new topics in the gaming industry and I'll have guests from the audience on the show. I called it GameCast for now, but if you have a better name for the talk show, let me know and we might change it. So this week we're paying homage to the new dark action-adventure stealth game called Dishonored, to be released in just a few days on October the 9th. It's developed by Arcane Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. And yes, Bethesda has their hands in everything these days, but hopefully this time it will result in a major win for this whole stealth genre. So the game takes place in an alternate reality, of course, during an industrial revolution, inside an Anglo-Saxon city called Dunwall, in the middle of a plague. A rat plague, to be exact. And I wanted to devote my entire first talk show to the art direction and concept design that went into building this city and the general environments in the game. And to do that, let's pull in one of my YouTube collaborators to help me out. Our guest for this chat is GooserFive, and we just call him Goose. So, Goose, say hi and mention what you do on YouTube, and then we'll get started.
All right, thanks for having me on the show. This is GooserFive. I'm a aspiring YouTuber, and Colby had me on the show today because I know a little bit about the Dishonored art design.
Yeah, actually a lot more than I do. And in fact, I didn't know much of anything until I started researching it last night. In fact, I told you to research a little bit, so I hope you've done your research.
Yeah.
Now, why don't we talk about, specifically about the art direction? Why don't we mention Victor Antonov? So he's the chief art director.
The main guy.
Yeah, who conceptualized the whole environment of Dishonored. And he's kind of the one who invented that, the whole look that became this new franchise called Dishonored. So he's not Russian, like his name would suggest. He's actually Bulgarian. And he then worked for, what was his? I don't remember exactly who he worked for to begin with, but I remember his first title, and I played the game. It was called Redneck Rampage, and that was one hell of a game for a crappy 1990.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. It was one of the first games after we finally got 3D exactly right in a game. You know, when games were finally truly 3D. That was also the year of Duke Nukem. I think it was Duke Nukem 3D. Yeah, that was the same year that came out. So what else? So then, what else did he work on?
He also worked on Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, and which I don't know if it was him with the art, but it definitely didn't get very good reviews. And then Half-Life 2, the City 17, very famous for that. I mean, not him, but
right. Yeah, and City 17, when I first saw the trailer for Dishonored, I immediately thought of Half-Life 2. You know, the first third of Half-Life 2 takes place in that general environment of City 17.
A dark kind of.
Yeah. So what is his specialty? Like
his specialty is like industrial design and kind of the steampunk feel that you see in it in Dishonored.
Right. But then what's strange is that he worked on Dark Messiah of Might and Magic, which isn't much steampunk at all. It's more like RPG, fantasy RPG.
Which like with the whole old school look, like with the buildings mostly, because the buildings are really the only thing that's normal, I guess you could say. Yeah. That was more of the other art director, Sebastian. I don't remember his last name.
Sebastian, well, let's find out. Sebastian Mitten. So he worked on mostly the architecture of Dishonored, huh?
Yeah, and what's cool is they actually went to London to look at the architecture, and I know he was saying that they weren't, him and Victor both were saying that they weren't looking at other games. While they were making this game, they were completely shutting out other games just so that they didn't get inspiration from another game. They were looking at more like books and history type stuff.
Right, to like create a real environment, like a new franchise that no one's ever tried before. Right, so what was the inspiration? We haven't even really talked about that, like the setting.
The setting was kind of inspired by like kind of Well, I know that one of the directors, the creative director, he said that when he looked at the other creative director, he was saying that he wanted it to be 1666-ish, kind of coming out of a plague.
Right.
And so they kind of worked up from there. And they were also saying that when they were making the city, it slowly became not London anymore, like with the steampunk and like one of the NPCs, which we'll talk about in a few. They kind of started moving away from old times and moving into the future, but also with the look staying in the past.
Right. Yeah, and if it was 1666, that was just before the Industrial Revolution, especially in London. And there's another city that they based, I think, a lot of the architecture on, which is Edinburgh. And so between London and Edinburgh, they gleaned not all of their inspiration, but a good chunk
portion.
Yeah, and they also included some of the history from both cities too, like you were mentioning the plague. So they tried to start the general setting in the last year of an outbreak of like a rat plague,
kind of like
and
the Black Death. I can't remember the name. What was the plague?
The bubonic plague.
Yeah.
And right.
What?
And what we don't have here in the city that it takes place in, which I mentioned earlier, Dunwall, is we don't have a fire like the Great London Fire that destroyed the city but also stopped the plague. So, but we do have rats. So, and Victor was a big part of coming up with all the different animals in the game. So what have we got in this game then?
The main three are the rats, the whales, and the dogs. Those are the main ones that are kind of shown. And with each of them, except for the rats, with the whale and the dog, they really tried to make their own whale and their own dog. And what one of the art crew, not one of the main ones, but one of the art crew was saying that with the dogs, they kind of took like some giraffe, which would be where you see the yeah, that's what I laughed too. But that's where you get like the thin nose and kind of the thin body. That's kind of where you'd see the giraffe.
Interesting.
And then with the whale, it kind of has whiskers, if you will, which is funny. It's like a catfish whale.
Yeah, or like feelers.
Yeah.
And then something else that I found really funny is one source of fuel in the game is actually whale blubber. And I just can't get over this whale blubber thing and how they incorporated that into the game. So you can refine the blubber and you make some kind of fuel out of it. I can't remember what the fuel is called, but then you can use that in weaponry, right?
Yeah. There's one pistol. I think it's a pistol, but you see it's kind of the main thing that they use. That is powered by whale blubber, if you will.
Oh god!
It's funny because you think of whale blubber and you think of the whale skin, which would be weird, shoving whale skin in your gun.
Yeah, well, that's definitely creative. I mean, see, I think you're right. They did. I mean, no game has ever tried any of this crazy nonsense.
But it's believable, which is
it is. Yeah, well, because whale blubber does have a lot of industrial uses in real life, so yeah, I think they just kind of went crazy with that idea. But then. So we talked about the animals. Now there was a certain antagonist or like an enemy that I liked. What was it called?
The tall boy.
Yeah, the tall boy. So what's going on with them?
They are tall. They were not tall, but they're a person that is on stilts, if you will, with a longbow and explosive arrows. And the explosiveness in the arrows comes from the whale blubber.
The blubber. Yeah. So I wonder where he got his Victor got his inspiration for the tall boys, or do you think it was actually the others that came up with the? No, I think it was him actually.
It was probably him. And if you look at it, the boats and I think maybe some other vehicles look like whales, so they kind of took the whale thing. They like whale is a big part other than the rats in this kind of the look.
Right.
The rats are more the cause, and
Mhm.
the whales are the look of it.
Right. And I was looking at so I'm looking at a photo of the tall boys, or actually I'm looking at a few photos, and they are guardians of some sort, right? And they're actually like they police the streets of this Dunwall, which is a dystopian environment. Why don't you explain? There's a lot of people who actually don't know what dystopia is, so just explain it really quick, and then maybe give an example.
Okay, so dystopia is, I just learned this too, is kind of the opposite of a utopia. And if you don't know what a utopia is, kind of like paradise, like something that you would like to be in. A dystopia is more of the thing that you wouldn't like to be in. And with this, it's a city, so you got a dystopian city, which you wouldn't really want to be in a city full of plague and pollution.
And it has it draws some parallels to 17th century London. It wasn't a dystopian environment, but it was very bleak because of the plague. It was wiping out the entire the lower class population, and it was the plague was running rampant through the slums, and I think that's what you have here. They're actually sectioning off the affluent districts and keeping them separate from the slums, and then setting up barriers. So what are the barriers? There's some laser barriers, right?
Yeah, they're like kind of electric barriers. They're invisible, and unless you're permitted, or maybe they shut it off. I don't know. I didn't see that much, but if you're not supposed to be past that gate, you will be vaporized into nothing if you walk past it.
Yeah.
And one more thing with Victor Antonov was mentioning that going into the art design, they wanted a bleak setting. They knew that they were doing a bleak setting. So I just thought I might throw that out there. So it was kind of from the get-go that it would be a darker dystopian world.
So they had, that's probably one of the first things he came up with, is he wanted a dystopian environment, not post-apocalyptic, because everyone's doing that now. In fact, half the games I've played lately, except for Oblivion, have been post-apocalyptic. And that goes hand in hand with that dystopian environment. It's not always... it doesn't always have to be bleak. Like, let's talk about... Yeah. Well, let's talk about BioShock. One of the two designers worked on it. Who was it? It was
Sebastian.
Mitten. Yeah, Sebastian Mitten. He actually did work on BioShock 2. You can draw all sorts of interesting parallels. So BioShock 2's art direction was an underwater dystopia that used to be a utopia, but then it wasn't. It was sort of steampunk, but it was more Art Deco. So all the architecture was very Art Deco, and that's one thing I loved about it. And there's nothing Art Deco here. I mean, it is purely an industrial city, like a dirty, bleak industrial city. And
that's kind of where you get the bleakness is from, like, and I'm looking at a picture right now, and you can see smoke coming up from a bunch of buildings just because of the industrialness.
Right.
And like Colby said, if you don't know what a utopia is, you can kind of look. If you played BioShock, you can look at that and kind of think about what it was before the water started taking over in the people.
Yeah, and it kind of takes a lot of experience working on games to come up with a totally new franchise like this. And that's what I wanted to mention, is like, not only is the franchise new, this is the first time we've ever heard of this Dishonored franchise. It's also the first time that
it's a new design.
Well, yeah, that this particular design has been tried, and for some reason it doesn't seem all that compelling to me yet. I guess we have to play it. We won't know until we're actually playing the game. And maybe it's
and another cool thing is Victor Antonov was more towards, so that with Victor Antonov, if he was the only one doing it, it would have been a complete industrial city, whereas Sebastian, he wanted a more classic city, like classic London. So with the two of them working on it, they kind of combined it, and Dunwall came of it.
Right. Yeah, so you can pull off a bleak environment. You just have to get it just right. I mean, there has to be a lot of elements that just keep it exciting, and it sounds like there are all sorts of elements. Now, we haven't even mentioned the art direction of the weapons. What are the weapons like? I mean, they look pretty standard. A standard
Yeah,
complement.
there's not a whole lot of, well, at least from the player standpoint, there's not a whole lot of guns. You're not going to be using guns a lot. I mean, unless you're that kind, then you're going to be sticking with one weapon. But
oh, I see.
The like blades, swords, daggers type thing, because it's an assassin as your player. So
Right.
a lot of it was that. Like, there is only one, and we haven't really seen a lot of the weapons yet. I mean, there's the longbow, which I don't think can be acquired, and then there's one gun that I've seen, one or two that I've seen.
I see.
And then the rest of it's just like a knife, like, that you kill your enemies with, because you want to be more stealthy. But that's kind of another thing they kind of wanted to make it so that you could care about the way it looks, but you don't have to. So they made a lot of the game based around that. Like, you can care about this thing, or you can, if you're a different type of player, you can just go past it and not worry about it.
Right. And I see the crossbow plays a big part in this game, where
Yeah.
you can equip it with, or you can load it or cock it with different types of darts, like sleeping darts, and then
Yeah.
the exploding, the whale blubber bolts that you mentioned earlier.
Of course.
Sticky grenade. What the hell is that?
Uh,
Oh, I see. That's exactly what you think.
yeah.
Throw it on the wall like spaghetti and it sticks and then it blows up.
Like, yeah. Like, it's got tape wrapped around it. It's probably got whale blubber wrapped around it, in all honesty.
Probably. And then I see you can acquire blueprints for weapons too. So, it
That's
sounds like
interesting.
it sounds like there's a lot of depth in this game. And I can't even begin to fathom it. I'm just going to have to buy it.
Alright, guys, we're back, and me and Colby decided we'll talk about the NPCs now, the art direction of the NPCs. And one that I kind of had in mind was Anton Sokolov. He's kind of a grungy old guy that is an alchemist, if you will. He's got black beard, black hair, goofy-looking guy.
But they actually look cartoonish, don't they?
Yeah, a real cartoon look, but that also kind of stays within reality, maybe, kind of believable.
Right. And I can't even tell if this guy is what side he's on. He looks like the kind of person you could probably buy potions from, or elixirs.
He kind of looks like someone that was with the government, but then something happened and he wasn't with them anymore.
Yeah,
Kind of like a scientist or something, if you will, that was with the government and got fired or made him angry.
Right. He's widely yeah, I have a feeling that because he's anti-government, a friend of the enemy. No, the enemy of the enemy is your friend, right? So he's probably a friend.
Yeah, I could think of him with the way he looks as like a black market kind of guy.
Yeah. So he's probably going to be someone you can talk to, or possibly even do business with. Now, I saw someone as I was flipping through these NPCs. What's his name? Esmond Roseborough. And when I first glanced at him, there was a cartoon that immediately came to mind because he looks like a cartoon character, and I couldn't place it first, but then I realized he looks like Doonesbury. And this Doonesbury character is from a comic strip in the 80s and 90s. It was really popular back in that time. Same time as Bloom County, the comic strip. This is a lot of people playing this game won't even, it was totally before their time, so they won't even know it. But yeah, so it is cartoony, but I could see how it's still believable enough to where he can put it in the game.
Yeah.
Oh, this Wikia.com just gave me a spoiler. It says Esmond before he commits suicide.
Yeah.
So now we know. Oh, and I just spoiled it.
Well, I don't think it's a spoiler. I don't think he's a character in the game.
Oh,
really?
I
think he's one of those referred to characters, but not one that you.
I got him. He's the one who discovered the whale blubber and how you can use it, how you can refine it and use it as the energy source.
Okay. Yeah,
okay, so he's supposedly the one who sparked Dunwall's Industrial Revolution. Okay.
Okay.
Interesting. Any other enemies you wanted to mention? There's a few others.
There's a few. There's the Warfare Overseer. He's kind of the guy that controls the dogs, it looks like, and he looks kind of like he wears a mask, and he kind of looks like maybe of like an Asian kind of style, like with his clothes, maybe the mask a little. Then I don't know, was there anything else? Maybe the Regents.
Yeah,
they are kind of like, I think of like, if you think of London back then, the higher up, like the
yeah, the affluent.
Yeah, and with the style that he is, trench coat, very sophisticated looking, maybe a bit of an asshole.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's these gangsters, like these street fighters that have all these. They do all look like they're right out of a cartoon strip.
The Bottle Street Gang.
Yeah, yeah. Now let's hope that even though they look like cartoonish, their animation is more believable than the way they look. Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully it's not like Skyrim. And the fact that Bethesda's name is on this, it immediately makes us think of those, those rigid animation, like marching up, or like like toy soldiers up a staircase.
That's kind of where Dishonored is really gonna have to do good, because it's a Bethesda game, so people are gonna expect a lot out of it. Right.
While still departing from their open worldness of the previous games. And that's something else we didn't mention, like how the art direction of an open world game is much more difficult because you have to build varied environments. However, this all takes place pretty much in one city and the vicinity of the city. So because of that, they're able to focus on one specific art design, not like Bethesda had to deal with before in
Skyrim.
Skyrim or Fallout, Oblivion, Morrowind, Fallout, all that. Yeah.
Where you have, like, as Skyrim especially, where you have like Fall Creek, kind of like the non-snowy area, and then you have up like other cities where it's really snowy. So you have a real challenge of art design there. Not challenge, but
and when the art direction all happens in one city, you're pretty much the only dividing line is one district to another. So maybe they've made different districts.
And how repetitive the buildings are.
Yeah, well, it looks like from the screenshots that hopefully they've taken a lot of architecture, or the other guy, what's his name? Sebastian.
Yeah, Sebastian.
Sebastian Mitten. He, hopefully they hired some architects to actually build some of these historical buildings in their likeness at least. You're not going to see exactly the same, like you're not going to see the London Bridge, and you're not going to see Big Ben or anything, but you'll see things roughly in their likeness. Yeah, from that era, I think. And that should be interesting. And Sebastian, who has worked on BioShock 2, well, when you work on a BioShock project, that means that you've got one theme, like let's say Art Deco, except every ward or every section of that city has to look different. With a different color palette and whatever. But it looks like this whole game has one big color palette, which is a bleak bronze and brown.
And maybe when you're in the city, you might not see a lot of that. And a lot of the pictures that you see are at nighttime. And I know that I've seen shots or video of it during the day, so I know that you kind of have that bleak feel, but you're also not going to be in the dark the whole time, which is relieving, I guess.
Oh, right. That reminded me of one other thing. One of the interviews with Victor, he mentioned the game Thief. Have you ever played Thief before?
No, but I've heard of it.
Okay, so there was this one game, one of them that I played was Thief Deadly Shadows. And the franchise, every game makes use of shadows as the key theme. It was like a thief/assassin game where you walked around as an assassin. That's one of the reasons I really enjoyed the Assassin's Creed franchise so far, because it reminded me of this Thief franchise. Well, one of the two worked on that game before, and so the key art direction centered around shadows and how you can incorporate shadows into the game. And that was actually one of the first games that had true dynamic shadows.
Cool.
Yeah. And I think that because I think a majority of this game will take place after dark because you're playing an assassin, right? So that changes the art direction too.
Yeah. And then it looks like I see another picture here, and it looks like Dunwall is made up of a bunch of different islands. I don't know if that's true, but it's just like it's called the Isles. You might see it on the main website. But it's got Tivia, Morley, Gristle, and Circanos, and I don't. Maybe each different island is a different district, maybe, if you will.
Probably, or you unlock one island at a time as you progress through the game, which is how a lot of these happen. You know, it's a semi-open world, but not a truly explorable open world.
Yeah. And then I see a picture of this gun, and it says whale oil powered. So maybe they like wring out the whale blubber or something. But
or yeah, or no, that would be really funny if you ride whales from one island to another. But I don't think they took it that far.
Surf them, like they're
yeah,
that'd be funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds like we got a lot to look forward to in the game. We just have to wait for it to come out and try it ourselves. So, are you going to play the game or not?
I will. I'm not sure if I'll be playing it opening day though. I will definitely be getting this game, just because how much interest I've put into it. I can't do all this and not play it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to play it myself. I might do it. I definitely won't do a walkthrough, but I'll do, I might do some random gameplay videos if I play it.
I was thinking about doing a walkthrough, but I don't know. It kind of seems like one of those games. There's very few games for me that it's easy to play and do a walkthrough on rather than playing yourself.
Right. Oh yeah, and you never mentioned which walkthroughs you've already got going on your channel. Just mention them.
I've got Fallout 3 and Minecraft, but Fallout 3 is kind of my main one, just because I have so much fun with that game.
Right.
So do other people.
Right. Right. And I actually watch yours. You know, I do. Even though I'm doing my own Game of the Year walkthrough on episode 85 now, I still watch others. You know, I watch yours. I watch what's his name, Gopher's Vids, the guy who did the Skyrim mod Sanctuary. You know, he's also doing his own Fallout series now. That's cool. So yeah, I do watch others. I just think it's very interesting because there's so many ways to play Fallout 3.
Yeah.
Now that's why I'm a little worried about Dishonored, because it's more linear. There's many ways to approach one particular problem in each area, and I think that's the whole where the game dynamics differ from a lot of other games. But the fact that it's linear, it's harder to do a really coherent walkthrough.
Well, like with this one, you can they made it so like, and with the art design a lot, you can go through the game without paying attention to a lot of the stuff. Or you can sit there and kind of explore everything, and they kind of give you a good option for that. Where you can shoot your way through everything, or you can be silent and stab your way through everything.
And I think a lot of us usually try more than one approach to an RPG game anyway, so I guess if you like replayability, then Dishonored seems like a great candidate. Okay, so anyway, we're approaching 30 minutes, so let's end right here. Goose, thanks for being on the show, and the next one will air in 2 weeks. And as if you can't possibly guess already, the next one will be dedicated to Assassin's Creed 3. So I hope you enjoyed our first episode, and we shall see you next time on the GameCast.